What if I told you that the secret to saving a historic neighborhood from gentrification wasn't a new local government grant or even a new zoning law?
Right, which is what you'd usually expect.
Exactly. But what if it was actually a federal immigration loophole used by foreign investors?
I mean, it sounds like a total contradiction.
It really
That,
does. Because usually when, massive pools of foreign capital flood into a city,
that's exactly when the longtime residents get priced out.
yeah, they displaced. But today, we're going to look at how one community is uh, basically hacking the real estate market by flipping that exact dynamic completely on its head.
And it is a fascinating reversal of the usual real estate playbook because
Oh,
for decades, the structural mechanism of gentrification has been treated almost like an inevitable law of physics.
yeah, like gravity.
Right. Developers come in, they buy up property, values skyrocket, and the people who built the culture of that neighborhood.
The locals, the mom and pop shops.
Exactly. The long-standing residents and business owners, they can no longer afford the rent, so they get displaced. But the project we're looking at today is attempting to basically rewrite those laws of physics entirely.
Right. And that's really the mission for today's deep dive. We know you, the listener, are always looking to understand the gears turning behind these massive societal shifts. But, you want the mechanics
Right. Not the dense academic theory.
or the really dry real estate jargon.
Hmm.
So we are diving into the blueprint for a project in South Dallas called the Winners Tower.
Which is such an interesting case study.
It really is. It's a development operating under what its creators call a new vision. They aren't trying to stop development, which is usually the go-to defense,
Just
right?
locking construction.
Right. Instead, they are attempting a radical financial approach to ensure the original community doesn't just, survive the new development, but actually owns it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the traditional problem with urban revitalization is that the people who already live there are treated either as obstacles to be removed
Or
or,
just consumers.
right, at best, as mere consumers who might buy an overpriced coffee in the new shiny lobby.
Yeah.
They are essentially renters of their own neighborhood's success. The Winners Tower model attempts to dismantle that extractive relationship using a very specific structural model to build wealth.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core of this whole operation rests on a concept the project calls tenant partnerships.
Mhm.
And to really grasp this, we have to look at how a standard commercial lease actually works.
Hmm.
If you've ever rented an apartment and watched your rent go up every year while your landlord builds equity,
Oh, yeah, it hurts.
right, you know exactly how extractive this feels. You pay your money, it's gone, it's just a sunk cost.
100%.
So normally, if you are a local baker or a clothing shop owner renting commercial space, it's the exact same thing.
Mm.
But under this tenant partnership model, the local business owners in the Winners Tower are given an equity opportunity.
Which is, frankly, a massive paradigm shift in how we think about commercial real estate. Because in traditional development, capital flows in one direction, from the tenant's cash register out of the community and straight into the portfolio of an outside investor.
Right.
But with an equity opportunity, you are turning that extractive relationship into a localized wealth building engine.
Wait, structurally, though? How does that actually work? Because it's easy to say, rent buys equity.
Sure.
But if I run a bakery in South Dallas paying, say, $4,000 a month in rent, I'm not just getting stock certificates handed to me every 30 days.
Right, right.
So how does a standard commercial lease legally convert into ownership of a high-rise?
Well, that's the crucial mechanical difference here. In a standard lease, your rent covers the landlord's debt service on their mortgage, the building's operating expenses, and, of course, the landlord's profit.
Yeah, they got to get paid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get nothing but the right to occupy the space for 30 days. But in the tenant partnership model, the lease is structured so that a portion of the tenant's monthly payment is legally categorized as a capital contribution.
Oh, wow. So it's basically a built-in investment plan.
Exactly. So the building is typically owned by a limited liability company, an LLC. And as the tenant makes their lease payments over time, say over a 5 or 10-year lease term,
Okay.
those capital contributions hit a certain threshold and they actually begin to vest into percentage shares of that LLC.
That's why.
They are slowly buying the building out from under themselves. They aren't just paying for the right to operate, they are acquiring a permanent piece of the pie. So as the building appreciates in value, the tenant's net worth grows right along with it.
And what's really wild to me is that this isn't some brand new, untested financial concept that someone just dreamed up in a coffee shop.
No, not at all.
It's just new for the little guy. So urban developers, like Kevin Brown, who is heavily involved in outlining this model, point out a massive double standard in commercial real estate.
Oh, this is such a great point.
He brings up the blueprint of large box stores.
Yeah.
Think of a massive brand like Target. When a developer builds a huge new shopping center, they desperately need a target to move in.
Right, because Target brings guaranteed, highly predictable foot traffic.
Exactly.
They act as an anchor, which is what makes the bank financing the construction feel safe enough to loan the money.
Right. And Target knows exactly how valuable they are to the developer's risk profile. So they don't just sign a standard lease.
True.
They often receive equity, actual ownership in the development simply for agreeing to be that anchor tenant.
Yeah.
The developer practically pays them an ownership just to be there.
Yeah.
So what the Winners Tower Blueprint is doing is taking that exact model of financial inclusion, which is usually strictly reserved for multi-billion-dollar corporations, and applying it to local entrepreneurs.
What's fascinating here is how this redefines what an anchor actually is.
Mm.
Because a beloved local business, say a restaurant that has been an institution in South Dallas for 30 years, they are an anchor.
They absolutely are.
They bring cultural foot traffic, they bring deep community buy-in, they reduce the friction between the new massive development and the surrounding neighborhood.
Right, they bridge that gap.
Exactly. The insight here is that these local entrepreneurs provide immense structural value to a real estate project, just like a corporate megastore does. And so they should be compensated with equity in the exact same way. They are treating local culture as a highly valuable corporate asset.
And that leads directly into why this model was chosen in the first place.
Yeah.
Because this rent-to-equity setup isn't just a quirky financial gimmick to generate some positive PR.
No, it's very intentional.
It is a highly deliberate, calculated defense mechanism. The explicit goal of the Winners Tower project is to protect the folks who have, quote, already been here.
And we really have to be clear about what that protection actually means.
Yeah.
When we talk about displacement in a city, we aren't just talking about changing the names on the storefronts. We are talking about the complete erasure of community identity.
It's devastating.
It is. The strategy specifically highlights the aim of ensuring that long-standing community businesses, particularly Black-owned businesses in this area of South Dallas, are not pushed out by rising operating costs. By guaranteeing they have an ownership stake in the corridor's revitalization, you insulate them from the very market forces that usually destroy them.
It's turning cultural preservation into a literal economic strategy.
Yeah.
Like, you don't protect the culture just by putting up a historical plaque or painting a nice mural.
Right.
You protect it by handing over the deed. If the local businesses own the LLC that owns the building, a massive outside firm can't just buy the property in 5 years and jack up the rent by 300%.
Exactly, because the tenants control the board.
Right.
Precisely. And this ties into the broader vision of an intergenerational economy.
Which is such a powerful term.
It really is. The ultimate goal isn't just to have a few successful shops operating on the ground floor. By moving beyond simple leasing and establishing true building ownership, you create an environment where the residents themselves are the owners and the employers.
Yeah.
That is wealth that can be leveraged, borrowed against, and passed down to the next generation, rather than being continuously extracted by a landlord who, lives 3 states away.
Okay, hold on. I have to interrupt here. Because
Yeah.
this sounds amazing on paper. I love the vision.
Right.
But practically speaking, if I'm a local contractor in South Dallas, or if I'm that local baker we talked about, I'm probably getting last out of a major commercial bank if I walk in and ask for financing to participate in a multi-million-dollar high-rise development.
Oh, without a doubt.
The barrier to entry in commercial real estate is astronomically high. Traditional banks hate risk, and they view small local businesses as high risk. So how is a local contractor actually getting the financing to build this? Like, where is the actual capital coming from to pour the concrete and put up the steel in the first place?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. And it's like the exact hurdle that stops 99% of community ownership projects right in their tracks.
Yeah, the money.
The vision is great, but the capital stack usually just falls apart. However, the mechanism driving the Winners Tower is a very specific and frankly ingenious financial engine.
Okay.
The solution lies in a regional center that operates the EB5 investment program.
Okay, the EB5 program. Let's break down the mechanics of that for the listener. This is a federal program created back in the 1990s, right?
That's right.
where foreign investors put capital into U.S. commercial enterprises.
Hmm.
But a crucial distinguishing detail about this specific regional center managing the EB5 funds for the Winners Tower is its leadership.
Exactly.
It is noted in our sources as being one of the few African-American-owned regional centers in existence.
And who owns the center completely changes the mandate of how those massive pools of funds are actually deployed.
How so?
Well, the regional center acts as the aggregator. It takes in the foreign capital and then deploys it into the project. And because of its leadership, a primary objective of this specific center is to provide what is known as soft interest funding.
Okay, let's define soft interest, because that sounds like a bit of a banking buzzword.
It does.
Structurally, what makes a loan soft compared to a traditional commercial loan?
It really comes down to the terms and the risk profile. If a traditional private equity firm or a massive commercial bank gives a developer a loan, they usually want double-digit interest rates,
Right.
immediate and rigid repayment schedules, and massive collateral. Often the personal assets of the developers themselves.
Right.
It's predatory by design because it's optimizing for maximum financial return. But soft interest is patient capital.
Patient capital. I like that.
Yeah. It might mean single-digit interest rates. It might mean deferred payments, where the local contractor doesn't have to start paying back the loan until the building is actually finished and generating revenue.
Okay, so it's capital that is specifically engineered for people who have been historically shut out of the economy.
Exactly.
It lowers the barrier to entry, so those local contractors who would get rejected by a major bank can actually secure the financing they need to build the development. The regional center bridges that gap.
Right. It uses the massive pool of foreign investment to create a buffer. It allows the local workforce to actually build and occupy the development without being crushed by predatory debt before they even open their doors.
Now, we should clarify something here.
Sure.
Whenever people hear phrases like massive pools of foreign investment and special visa loopholes, it can sound a little shadowy
Yeah.
or like a scheme.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a shell game.
Yeah. But there are heavy structural safeguards here. This isn't some backroom operation. Because it operates under the EB5 program, this regional center is subject to strict federal regulations.
Yes.
The U.S. government, specifically the Immigration and Securities agencies, heavily monitors exactly how these investment funds are handled, how they're reported, and where every single dollar goes.
And the federal oversight is a critical component. Absolutely. Yeah. It provides the legal scaffolding that ensures the money is actually deployed into the community and not just shuffled around in offshore accounts.
Right.
But to truly understand why this model is so revolutionary, we have to look at the psychology and the motivations of the people actually providing the money.
Yes. Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about a traditional private equity firm investing $50 million into a skyscraper. What do they want?
They want maximum profit.
Exactly. They want a massive internal rate of return, and they demand total control over the project to ensure they get it.
Right.
But the EB5 program fundamentally changes the investor's motivation. The foreign investors putting their money into this regional center are primarily motivated by obtaining a U.S. green card.
Exactly.
That is the incentive of the federal program. Invest capital into U.S. job creation, and you get a pathway to residency. They are not motivated by squeezing every last dime of profit out of the building. Their yield isn't a 20% financial return. Their yield is the visa.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that difference in motivation is the key that unlocks the entire Winners Tower strategy. Because the foreign investors are focused on immigration rather than maximizing profit, they do not, as the project leaders note, drive what is in the building.
Wow.
This shields the regional center and the local developers from outside corporate pressure.
That makes total sense. Imagine a standard developer trying to use local, smaller contractors to build a high-rise. A massive private equity backer would step in immediately.
Oh, they'd stop it right away.
Yeah, they'd say, no, we demand you use this giant multinational construction firm because they have economies of scale and it shaves 2% off our overhead.
Precisely. The traditional investor forces the developer to extract value away from the local community just to satisfy the spreadsheet.
Right.
But here, because the EB5 investors just want their principal capital preserved and their green card secured, local leadership has complete autonomy.
That's incredible.
They can choose to prioritize community-focused vendors. They can hire the local South Dallas contractors and provide them with those soft interest loans, all without an outside investor breathing down their neck demanding they optimize for corporate efficiency.
It is an incredible alignment of incentives.
Hmm.
You have global capital looking for immigration pathways, and you use that exact capital to shield local community development from corporate greed.
Exactly.
And it's not just a handshake agreement. There are hard, mandatory safeguards locking this money into the local environment.
Yep.
First, by federal regulation, every single EB-5 investor in this program must create at least 10 local jobs. That is a hard metric required by the U.S. government to get the visa.
It's non-negotiable.
The foreign capital must result in tangible, provable employment for the local workforce.
And that metric guarantees that the investment has to materialize as actual paychecks for people standing on the ground in that community.
Right.
It can't just be used to buy up existing property without creating new economic activity.
And second, there is a fierce geographic commitment from the project leadership themselves. When discussing the capital managed by the regional center, the organizers are adamant that they are never going to spend a penny of that money outside this environment.
Which is huge.
Yeah, they are intentionally ring-fencing all developmental spending strictly within South Dallas.
Which creates a closed-loop economic system. The foreign money comes in, it provides soft interest loans to local contractors to build the tower, it creates the mandatory local jobs,
Yeah.
and then the local businesses use the revenues from those jobs to operate and gain equity in the building.
It feeds itself.
It does. And to support all of this, the regional center isn't just acting as a bank, they are focusing heavily on capacity building.
Okay, what does capacity building actually look like in this context?
It basically means acting as an incubator. They are providing physical office space and a domain that supports local entrepreneurship.
Oh, I see.
Like, a local contractor might be incredible at laying concrete, but they might not have the back office infrastructure to handle the paperwork for a massive high-rise project.
Right, the logistics are totally different.
Exactly. So the regional center helps build that capacity. They aren't just handing out soft interest loans. They are building the infrastructure for these businesses to actually succeed and handle the immense scale of a project like the Winners Tower.
So what does this all mean? When you step back and look at the whole board, the Winners Tower project is utilizing an absolutely fascinating cocktail of mechanisms.
It really is a cocktail.
You have foreign investment capital, federal immigration incentives, soft interest loan structures, and a localized rent-to-equity leasing model, all working together to build a literal fortress of local wealth in South Dallas.
Yeah.
It is taking the exact tools that usually drive gentrification, massive outside capital and large-scale development, and hacking them to do the exact opposite.
It really is a remarkable case study in how the structure of capital dictates the outcome of a community. By changing who holds the equity, and by changing the psychological motivations of the investors from financial yield to immigration yield, they are attempting to prove that you can revitalize a neighborhood while keeping the original residents firmly in place.
Yes.
Not as renters watching the value of their neighborhood skyrocket out of reach, but as owners capturing that value.
That's the whole point.
The real question for you, the listener, is what stands out to you? How do you view this alignment of global capital with deeply localized entrepreneurship? Does understanding these mechanics change how you look at the new developments popping up in your own city?
It definitely changes how I look at the cranes in the sky.
Right.
And it leaves me with a final thought I want to pass on to you to mull over. If a federal immigration incentive program like EB-5 can be successfully leveraged and essentially hacked to shield a local community from gentrification and create intergenerational wealth, what other seemingly unrelated federal programs are out there? What other massive tools of capital or obscure tax policies could be rewired and hacked to empower communities that have historically been shut out of the economy?
It's a great question.
The tide of urban development is always going to rise. The question is, how many different ways can we figure out how to build boats for the people who actually live on the shoreline?
A fantastic question to leave on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.